Hello there. I am Koios, the Rōnin BeatMaker,
Hello
and
there.
and welcome to Lounge Rōnin. All things, everything,
And
and on this episode, we're going to discuss. Well, before we get into it, if you are new to the channel, please make sure to hit that like button, subscribe, and ring that notification bell. And on this episode, we're going to discuss George Lucas versus Disney, Round 3, The Acolyte. Now, if you've been on this journey of mine with me, you'll understand that in round 1, we discussed my apathy. And in round 3 of George Lucas versus Disney, much love for everyone who just joined in. Thank you so much for taking time out of your morning to join us on this little journey in preparation for The Acolyte. But in case you missed it, in round 1, I discussed my apathy with the state of Disney Star Wars, and I guess a little bit of Star Wars in general. And in round 2, we discussed some of George Lucas's comments in terms of his criticisms towards Hollywood. And you could definitely make the case to say towards Disney as well. He has made some other comments towards Disney. But we covered that, and in this part, in round 3, we're going to cover Acolyte. We are going to cover the, I guess you could say the PR nightmare that's been kind of going on in preparation for the premiere of the Acolyte show. And we're going to check out this article by Variety with an interview with Leslie Headland, who is the showrunner of the Acolyte and was also the former personal assistant to Harvey Weinstein. So take with that as you will. And also some comments made by Kathleen Kennedy. We're also going to check out a video from WDW Pro, I believe it is. I like their channel. I like the people that they have on there. They're a little bit more reasonable than some of the other pop culture commentators out there. So I enjoy their content because they kind of approach it from a more balanced point. Yeah, sometimes they do a little bit of grifting, but I mean, this is America, and America is in the age of grifting as it is, so be that as it may. But I wanted to just start off with the article first to just kind of get an idea of the narrative that's going to be changing in terms of what we as I'm a prequel baby. I love the prequels. I love the OT, but we know that there is going to be some dramatic changes that are going to be coming towards Disney's Star Wars interpretation of the Force. And I wanted to do a little dive into the situation that's kind of been going on with Star Wars and the feminization of a boy brand and the Marxist implications that kind of come with it. A lot of people want to call it woke, but a lot of what we're seeing in pop culture, Hollywood, and that is Marxism. But they want to call it woke, but they've taken a word and turned it into something else. But that's a whole nother thing. But let's get into this article. I just wanted to talk about essentially their thoughts on this whole idea of the Force as female and the implications of what that means in terms of our love for Star Wars, the Force, and just the future of pop culture, mythology, and lore. This is something I think is really important to talk about. But without further ado, let's get into the article. All right. All right, this is by the New York Times. Where is he? By Brooke Barnes. It was released May 29th, 2024. Leslie Headland hopes the Force is with the Acolyte. Her new Star Wars show said I wasn't scared, she said. Here we have an image of Leslie Headland. So let's get into this article. Leslie Headland has been telling Star Wars stories on screen since she was a teenager. Ostracized at school for being different, she retreated inward, making stop-motion films starring her action films. Okay, sounds like many other kids at that age, but okay. So, and I'm gonna try to keep my biases out of here. Like I said at the beginning, who she worked for in the past. I'll leave that to you guys to make your judgments and all of that stuff. But, like I said, I do have some apathy, and I think like many of us out there who are OT fans, who are prequel fans, men, women, gay, straight, bi, Asian, black, whatever. I think we all have a little bit of a right to be a bit frustrated with Disney, Star Wars, and those who are creating it. And this is just me personally, so I'm just speaking for my own self. Leslie Headland has been telling, okay, we got that part, right. So when she found success as an adult in Hollywood, Headland helped create Russian Doll, the 2019 Netflix comedy starring Natasha Lyonne, and got the chance to create an actual Star Wars show. It was the realization of a lifelong dream, and a chance for humiliating failure on a galactic scale. Oh boy. I essentially cold called Lucasfilm, and after a lot of conversations, found myself pitching a show. Utterly elated, my ultimate career goal, the culmination of fandom. Headland said, at the same time, I would be lying if I said I wasn't scared. There is so much pressure. It's extreme. I had never done anything this big before. Now, if you're aware, the show's budget is $180 million, and it's 8 episodes, 30 minutes long, which means if you take out the credits and the opening theme, you're looking at a 25 to 20 minute episode. Just like if you really think about it, if you cut out the intro and all that fun jazz, you're left with a 20 to 25 minute show. Maybe 28 if you're lucky. And it's 8 episodes for $180 million. Furiosa, which cost $180 million to make, only made $111 or $110 million since it came out. It's only been 2 weeks. You can rest assured there's probably not going to be any more Mad Max films, whether it's featuring Furiosa or Mad Max with Tom Hardy as him. So, I mean, this just putting that to perspective. It's, she's never done anything of such a large budget. Why are we putting people who have no experience in such tentpole, projects of this type of financial magnitude in a position of power? Look what happened with the Marvels. I mean, this is a theme for Disney. I'm under the impression that when the Sam Bankman-Fried situation happened, it exposed Disney as a money laundering operation for the federal government, and maybe even for the Democratic Party. But that's a whole nother topic. If that's something you guys are interested in hearing, let me know down in the comments section my theory on that. But let's continue. Headland show The Acolyte will debut on Disney Plus on June 4th, costing roughly $180 million for 8 episodes. And taking 4 years to make it, it attempts 2 feats at once, pleasing old school Star Wars fans. Okay. Okay. And who can seem unpleasable while telling an entirely new story, one that requires no prior knowledge of Star Wars and that showcases women and people of color. Okay. This is where the Marxism comes into play. All right. This isn't Marxism and feminism. And if you know anything about feminism, you know that it was created by the federal government. And if you know anything about Gloria Estefan, you know that she was an informant for the FBI. But I digress. Sorry. Sometimes I go off on my Rōnin rants. I'm getting back on topic. But here's the thing. She says here, she's trying to attempt 2 feats at once, pleasing old school Star Wars fans who can seem unpleasable, while telling entirely new stories. Okay, let's start with the first part. Pleasing old school Star Wars fans. If you listen to any Star Wars reviewer, Star Wars lore person, whatever it may be, podcast, any of them, anybody, they tell you what they want. And it's simple stuff. We want to see Luke being Luke. Being an incredible Jedi, but as well as an incredible human, a man who makes you want to be better. We want to see that. We want to see his evolution into creating the Jedi Order. Leia, we want to continue to see Leia as a strong, feminine female character who continues to lead and guide the rebellion, but as well as be a mother and a wife. To Han Solo, a swashbuckling, gunslinging smuggler who deep down inside just always wanted to find a home. And he found it within the rebellion, within Leia, within Luke. You know, it's simple stuff. We want to see Chewie ripping arms off and destroying people with his crossbow blaster. You know, there's simple things that people wanted. We weren't asking for a lot. You know, you had the expanded universe. You had all of the expanded universe to take and involve and expand upon. There are so many things you could have done. You could have had the new trilogy be post Thrawn in The Last Command. You could have done things like that. You could have incorporated the Fell Empire. You could have had it that, yes, after the fall of the Empire, a fraction led by, you know, a handful of inquisitors went and created an inquisitive empire for, you know, something like that. There are so many ideas you could have taken and expanded upon, and it was there for you. The old Star Wars fans, you knew what they wanted. It was in the expanded universe comics. It was right there for you. There were plenty of stories out there that were great that you could have adapted and made it more streamlined and made it more digestible for a new audience. Because by using the expanded universe to not only please old school Star Wars fans, it allows new fans a place of reference and a place to go to, you know, their uncles and their dads, the guys who grew up on this stuff. So there were ways to please us. And one of it was sticking as a boy brand. Star Wars is for boys. Yes, girls love Star Wars as well, but they love the aspects of Star Wars that the boys love just as much. So, you know, it wasn't possible to please old school Star Wars fans. It's just that you didn't want to. You never wanted to. And I've been reflecting on this a little bit, and this is the kind of idea that I've had, is that, you know, Disney and Lucasfilm, what they essentially did is they catered to an imaginary audience. And what I mean by they catered to an imaginary audience is that they catered to an audience that only exists within their own imagination. And in that imagination is their own version of Star Wars. And people kind of mock it with the Tumblr stuff and all these kind of different things. But this is really the thing. They catered Star Wars to an imaginary audience that wasn't there. And you see it there when Leslie Hazen also kind of says pushing women and people of color, as if the woman who didn't edit the Star Wars films wasn't a woman, George Lucas's wife, ex-wife. It's not as if you had Princess Leia, a 19-year-old woman, leading a rebellion. Not only that, she was also an operative. She worked as an operative. You had Mon Mothma, another woman who, and I kind of actually liked what they did in Star Wars Rebels, where she kind of gave up and outed herself as the leader of the rebellion. I kind of liked what they did there. Don't get me wrong, there were some things in Disney Star Wars that I actually liked. I did enjoy Rebels. I thought they had a good thing going there with Rebels. But somewhere along the line, I don't know what happened, but I'm going a little off topic. But you had already strong women in Star Wars. Whether it was the like I said, the editor. I mean, we had so many strong women. It was already there. And people of color, they were already in Star Wars. You had various alien races. And here's the thing, too. This is what's funny about it, right? Just because you didn't... apologize about that. Just because you didn't see, black people and Asian people all over the place, the very few that you did see in the films told you that obviously we are dealing with a plethora of humans. And we also have to remember in Star Wars, there's no black people, there's no African people, there's no Asian people. If you go to the planet Naboo, they're Nabooians or whatever you want to call them, and there's black people there, there's Asian people there in Naboo, but they're not black or Asian. They're just from Naboo. It's no different than if you're from Tatooine. So this whole idea that, giving more races a time to shine in Star Wars doesn't make any sense, because there's no race. It's just the human race. And I think that's a pretty profound message to kind of put out there. And George Lucas defended that. He recently was like, this is not true. There was so much diversity in Star Wars. And here's the irony about it. I'm from the Caribbean. I loved Luke. He was a white guy, but I didn't see Luke as a skin color. I saw Luke as Luke Skywalker. I didn't see white man Luke Skywalker. I didn't see white man Han Solo. I just saw Han Solo. I just saw Luke Skywalker. Anybody who was an old school fan or even a prequel fan, you didn't see Mace Windu and think, well, you did probably think Samuel L. Jackson, but you didn't think a black man. You just saw Mace Windu. Any of these characters, they weren't based upon the race that we live in our current reality. This is a sci-fi fantasy world. So the concept of race goes out the window, because in this world, they don't discriminate based on race in the Star Wars universe. The Empire is a perfect example of that. They were occupying and destroying Alderaan. Alderaan was a planet full of people, humans. They didn't discriminate. Like this idea that this is what I'm talking about. and this is Marxism. This isn't wokeness, okay? All right. If you go back into woke is a black culture term, all right, and it meant stay woke. Hey, they're putting fluoride in the water, and it's causing infertility. It's causing these issues. Stay woke. Building Tower 7. What's going on there? Stay woke. So they will take words, and this is Marxism for you. This is the whole like. This is what they do. They'll take words and they'll change it to mean something else. How many hours? Okay, much love to G. Thank you for stopping by. I really appreciate it. Let me just get a better. Okay, how many hours is the Acolyte releasing? All right, so it's 8 episodes. The show is only 8 episodes, and they're supposedly 30 minutes long. So is that like I don't like how many hours is that? Is that even worth watching? And I'm being completely honest here. And that's another problem. How is it that a show that cost $180 million and it's only 8 episodes? And we've seen some of the trailers. The quality, I mean, is not the best. So, and this is the issue that I was having with is like this idea of race in Star Wars. That's not a concept. And George Lucas did a beautiful job about that. The Empire is a perfect example. All right. The Acolyte it's releasing today. I'm assuming maybe 9 p.m. I'm speculating it would be 9 p.m. They're not doing their weird thing where they used to release the episodes in the United States at like 12 a.m. So I'm speculating 9, similar to how they do House of Dragon. And a perfect example, I mean, House of Dragon, I think, would have a similar budget to the Acolyte, if not a little bit more. And we have dragons. It looks way better. The outfits, everything looks better. If you've seen the trailers for the Acolyte, it doesn't really look and feel like Star Wars. And even the fight choreography. And I love my martial art films. Yeah, no problem, Jill. Thanks for stopping by. And hey, if you enjoy the content here, please make sure to subscribe. Really appreciate it, man. And even the choreography for this show the fight choreography does not look well. Right now on YouTube, they're doing a crazy marathon of Jackie Chan films. But the whole point here with this whole idea where Leslie Headland is claiming that a show that showcases women and people of color is one. It is actually pretty offensive and racist, and it is just downright wrong and not even true. And this is what I mean. You have to distinguish the difference between when they use the word woke and when it really means kind of cultural Marxism, and you're just changing words. You're changing people's reality and perception. So if you're going to try to convince people that there were never any strong women in Star Wars, you are erasing the legacy of Fisher, Mrs. Fisher. How are we gonna do that? Like, are we really gonna just erase the legacy of famous actresses in Star Wars? I don't. This is what's really very inauthentic, and it should tell you guys, out there, they don't really care for Star Wars. This isn't Star Wars. And this is people who are trying to erase the Star Wars that we loved and to create something new for an imaginary audience that does not exist. Are we going to be kidding here and pretend and act like there weren't gay people that have always enjoyed and liked Star Wars? Are we really going to act like that? Are we going to pretend that there weren't gay people that love Star Wars? Are we going to pretend that there aren't adult drag shows for adults where they have Star Wars themes? Like, what are we doing here? And this is, this should tell you out there how inauthentic these people are. And Leslie Headland is, and Kathleen Kennedy, who is the head of Lucasfilm, and Bob Iger. This should tell you how inauthentic these people are, and how inauthentic they are towards the legacy of Star Wars and the women in Star Wars. Mara Jade? I mean, really? How many people love the character Mara Jade from the expanded universe? I literally have right now. I could go and pull it up. The Star Wars Union, the miniseries for when Luke marries Mara Jade. I have that. My mom got that for me. It was one of the first Star Wars comics I got that got me into wanting to collect more Star Wars. Actually, I wanted to start collecting more Star Wars because of Disney. Because I was like, oh man, they're gonna go into the expanded universe, and they're gonna cherry pick and take certain elements and maybe story beats, and we're gonna see that. I got excited for that, unaware of Lucasfilm, George Lucas giving in his plot points for future Star Wars films. So I have that. There are plenty of characters out there. What's his name? Zane Carrick from the Old Republic comic book series. I can't remember her name. She's an incredible character. She's an alien, but she's an incredible character. Badass. There are plenty of really strong and incredible characters who are female in Star Wars, and those of people of color. But at the same time, remember, this is a galaxy where you have talking fish, Mon Calamars. Okay, you have talking fish. Like, this isn't Earth. So this is the problem when you have people who don't actually understand Star Wars and who are mostly ideologically driven, and they don't have any creativity, and they don't have a real imagination. And this is what I mean by Disney and even Marvel, or Lucasfilm and Marvel. They are creating content for an imaginary audience that does not exist. And even the handful of people that do enjoy Disney Star Wars, how much of them are people who genuinely enjoy it, and how much of them are people who are paid to enjoy it? So these are things to take into consideration. Even the park. Look what just happened with Star Cruiser, or Star Wars, Star Cruiser. Look at these things. It's right there in front of you. You created content for an imaginary audience and built an entire theme park for this imaginary audience, and only a handful of people actually showed up for it. And this idea of there not being women in Star Wars is so disrespectful to the women who helped contribute to making Star Wars what it is today, under George Lucas. So it's completely disrespectful, and that's something people should take into consideration moving forward when it comes to Disney and the content that they create. Any of these big corporations, take this stuff into consideration. Let's continue. Excuse me. For the faithful, the Acolyte serves up scads of Jedi, a franchise fundamental that the other live-action Star Wars TV shows have depicted sparingly or not at all. The opening scene in The Acolyte takes place in an eatery crowded with colorful aliens, a callback to the Mos Eisley Cantina from Star Wars movie in 1997. See, they don't even understand Star Wars. They're like, here, we're going to do this because it's a callback. Classic South Park episode, the member berries. This isn't like, it's disappointing. But let's continue. Other shout outs to core fans. We see you, we haven't forgotten about you, are sprinkled into the dialogue. May the Force be with you, and I have a bad feeling about this. Makes an early appearance. So, and this is what I mean by they don't care about Star Wars. They think Star Wars is catchphrases and aliens in a bar. This should tell people out there, they don't understand Star Wars. And Lucas was saying that. They don't understand Star Wars. They don't understand the Force. So this is something people should take consideration with any IPs that you love when they announce a new version of it or they're bringing it back or whatever. Will it be genuine and authentic? Something to think about moving forward. And you see it right now. You see the collapse of Hollywood. You see the fact that there's a lack of authenticity and genuine interest in making new films and challenging the audience with making stuff that makes us want to go to see films, makes us want to become filmographers and screenwriters and all that fun jazz. It's gone. At the time, the Acolyte embraces what some people call New Star Wars, an era defined by diversity and expansion beyond the Skywalker saga, which started with Disney's purchase of the franchise in 2012. What does that mean? An era defined by diversity and expansion. What does that mean? The last comic book that Dark Horse put out in the Star Wars universe was called Anina Solo. That took place 200 years after the Yuuzhan Vong War. And she's literally a Skywalker. She's a descendant of Leia and Han. That was beyond that expanded beyond the Skywalker saga by 200 years. What does that mean? There's always been diversity in Star Wars. And this is what I mean when I talk about the Marxification of Star Wars, of Disney, of Marvel, whatever it may be. There's always been diversity. The expanded universe literally expanded beyond the Skywalker saga, but we have to take in consideration that everything that happened after the Skywalker saga contributes to the world of the Star Wars universe because that is the foundation for all of us. So this is what I mean. It's disingenuous and it's bullshit. Let's continue. Amanda Steinberg stars as a dreadlocked warrior who has a complicated relationship with a Jedi Master played by Lee Jong-jae from Squid Game in his first English-speaking role. Jodie Turner-Smith plays the lesbian leader of a regal coven of witches, while the Filipino-Canadian actor Manny Jacinto appears as a shadowy traitor. In one of her most action-oriented roles since The Matrix, Carrie-Anne Moss plays a steely Jedi named Master Indara, who dies in the first 3 minutes of episode 1. So if you're hoping to see, Carrie-Anne Moss do some really cool stuff, she's only in it for the first 3 minutes and then she's out. Shout out to Jay Pylon, much love. Yeah, you're right. Jay says, means garbage storytelling and grandstanding over political identity agendas in our degenerate modern era. Exactly. And to pretend as if George Lucas didn't already incorporate political themes into Star Wars is already crazy and asinine to make. The Empire literally is a great representation of fascism. And what we're currently dealing with right now in the United States, anybody, okay? If you're curious as to where George Lucas got the idea of the Empire he was looking around at the United States. Just in case you didn't know. That's where it came from. Newt Gingrich, that politician, that slimy guy, who was cheating on his wife while his cheating on his wife with his secretary while his wife was suffering from cancer. Nuke Gunray from the Phantom Menace and from the Clone Wars show is based off of Newt Gingrich. I mean, it's right there in front of you guys. He was literally mimicking the Vietnam War in terms of the United States and United States hegemony. It's right there in front of you. It's, this is what's crazy about it. And think about it here. Like, why do we need to know that she's a lesbian? Like, this is what I mean about the Marxification of Star Wars and DEI and all of that stuff. Some of it is makes sense, and some of it isn't. Remember when everyone was bitching and complaining about the planes, and they were saying, oh, the planes are falling out of the sky because we got black pilots and black engineers, and then it turns out that Boeing is going around and killing any whistleblower that pretty much goes out and says, yeah, Boeing, they're not actually doing anything to improve the planes, and they're actually skipping safety checks and regulations. But remember, let's quickly first blame it on the black people. So you got to be careful with the whole DEI narrative, because sometimes it makes sense. Other times, it turns out it's not the case. When it comes to this show, you look at the way Leslie Headland has been talking, expanding diversity, inclusion, women, people of color, and here you have it here. They go out of their way to tell you their nationality and their sexual orientation. Who cares that she's a lesbian? No one cares. No, why? Why is that? Why is that necessary for us? And if I remember correctly, I heard rumors that there's going to be a sex scene in Star Wars, in the Acolyte. They hired an intimacy coordinator for the show. So I'm just letting everyone know out there, if it's true that there's an intimacy coordinator for this show, if there is any sex scenes on this show, best be sure it is not going to be between a man and a woman. I'm just letting you know right now, because Leslie Headland, she's queer, and her wife is in the show. She's the green alien with the lightsaber whip, which does not even make sense lore-wise or just practicality-wise. Jay says, there is so much great content to draw upon for inspiration and thought-provoking ideas to bring out the best stories. Gender identity and so-called diversity take procedural role. Yeah, and keep in mind, George Lucas didn't do that with the Star Wars universe. He just, when you look at all the great shows out there, okay, you know what? I'm gonna give you guys a prime example. If you're interested in watching an amazing sitcom show, watch All in the Family. All right, I started watching All the Family with my mom, and I did not realize, one, how amazingly funny this show is, and two, how groundbreaking All in the Family is. All right, All in the Family has an Emmy-winning episode where they have one of the first openly gay woman on the show. Okay, this idea that film and television has not been progressive is total bullshit. We already know about Star Trek in the first interracial kiss, but All in the Family broke so many grounds. Literally, you had a drag episode on All in the Family, hilarious episode where a dude he's dressed in drag and he chokes, and Archie gives him mouth-to-mouth recitation thinking that that's a woman. Turns out it's a man in drag. It's hilarious. All right, if you want a really funny show that is way more creative and and actually does diversity and inclusion in a way that's natural and part of the time, but also educates. All in the Family is an amazing show. We like, there are so many great in Star Wars. There's no idea of race. There is a human race. There is a Transdorans. There is the Wookiees. Okay, there is the Twi'leks, the Bothans. There is no such thing as, there's not a planet full of black people. Well, technically there was in Legends because of Mace Windu, but I digress. That wasn't forced or anything like that. That was just be creating a civilization, and that's the thing that's different in Star Wars. Look at Alderaan. These are the Alderaan people. That's the planet. That's the planet they live on. That's the planet the colonizers went to and colonized, and over time created their civilization. So, and also, literally, the planet of Alderaan was ran by a woman, a queen, and her husband was the senator, or the senator for the planet. So, and no one cared about these kind of things. No one cared about that. No one cared about one of the most incredible Latin actors in the world was Senator Organa, Bail Organa. No one cared about the fact that he was Latino. Everyone cared about, oh my God, that's a badass actor. Oh my God, this is a great character. No one cared about his representation. So this is another issue that we have to keep in mind. Look at the way they're talking about this show. And even here it says, the Acolyte also breaks new ground behind the camera. While women have directed episodes of the shows like The Mandalorian and Obi-Wan, Headland 43 is the first to create a Star Wars series. Okay. What does that mean? What does it mean that, and also, she broke ground, but let's keep in mind, guys, they didn't give a black woman her own Star Wars show to write and be a showrunner for. Just saying, there's so much. It's kind of ironic how Disney claims there's so much for diversity and inclusion when the head of Lucasfilm is a white woman. The creative head of Lucasfilm is a white man. Their newest show, created by a white woman, The Mandalorian, created by a white man. Andor, created by a white man. I want you guys to think about this, okay? They claim they're for diversity and equity and inclusion, but literally everyone I just mentioned is all white people. So if you really think they care about diversity, equity, inclusion, come on now. Come on now. And that's, and this is what's the irony of it. This is the irony of American Marxism, okay, and American leftism. All right, and now you're seeing it in the right with the way they're starting to act like the left, but that's a whole nother conversation. But I just want you to keep in mind, just keep in mind, it was like working on a razor's edge, she said during a Zoom interview, pushing her oversized glasses higher on her nose. You're thinking, this is what people want from Star Wars. This is what people don't want. It can mess with your head. During the creative process, she continued, I had to give myself the forgiveness as an artist to fall off the razor. As long as I got back up, that was my promise to myself. And here we have an image of Jodie Turner-Smith, who plays the lesbian witch. For whatever reason, that is important. And I would not be surprised, this is a speculation, if the sex scene that's going to be in this show, if it's true, might be with her. Speculations here and theories. I will be doing a review of episode 1 and 2, maybe tonight. I'm going to try to do a live stream of it tonight after they debut. I'm going to finagle that to a possibility. But let's continue. From the second that any new Star Wars project comes into public view, Disney announced The Acolyte in 2020. Fans claw for information and pick apart what they find. It's part of what makes Star Wars so powerful. People care, but the attention also creates problems. Rumors can solidify into facts. Some Star Wars obsessives, for instance, have worried that Headland Show breaks canon or tinkers with already established storylines in the franchise. The ultimate Star Wars crime. It does not. Okay, one, this show has already broken its own canon. This, not even the show, Disney Star Wars has already broken their own canon. They can't even follow their own canon timeline. So this idea, this is Disney Star Wars' canon timeline. They've already established that. This idea of breaking canon, they break their own canon constantly because they don't even reference their own timeline and stuff. I'll give you an example. In the Disney Star Wars main Star Wars run, in one of the earlier episodes where issues of the comic where Luke was on was he on Nal Hutta? I think he was on Nal Hutta, and he gets captured by this one of Jabba's species. I forgot what they're called. One of those giant slugs. And the guy collects Star Wars. He collects Jedi artifacts.